So first of all, welcome everyone to the information session for applicants from the Macaronesian region. My name is Lucia and I work for Consulta Europa Projects and Innovation. And I will give the floor now to Michelle, who's the CEO and leader of this company, and she will make a little bit of an introduction on the general best life objective and what's the role of Consulta Europa, and then I will take the floor. So be patient because there's a lot of information today, but we will take the time as much as needed, and if you have any questions, we will wait until the end for the Q&A sessions. But yeah, just enjoy the morning. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucia. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this information session. So very briefly, I would like to introduce the Best Life 2030 grant scheme, which is a grant scheme for biodiversity in EU overseas. And this is a granting facility, sub-granting facility, since this is actually a project which is targeting stakeholders of both European outermost regions and associated overseas countries and territories. And this sub-granting facility aims at funding projects that will ensure a real impact on the ground and that can demonstrate the commitment of these territories towards successful biodiversity strategies, at regional level in particular. Next slide, please. So, as I said, this is actually a sub-granting facility because this is a project which has a duration. It has started actually in 2000. We'll start it in 2026 and end in 2029. It has an important budget, an important grant amount budgeted and supported, which is of almost 32 million euros. And as I said before, is targeting both outermost regions and overseas countries and territories. And you see here the areas that are covered under this both denominations. So we have the Amazonia area, the Caribbean area, the Indian Ocean area, the Macaronesian area, the North Atlantic and Pacific areas. Next slide, please. And in our case, Consulta Europa is actually acting as support regional hub for the Macaronesia area. What are the objectives of this program of Best Life 2030? To support biodiversity conservation and the sustainable use of ecosystem services, which include also climate adaptation. And the second objective is to empower local stakeholders to define and implement projects that respond specifically to the regional challenges and which address conservation issues and priorities with this specific approach, regional or area approach. So stakeholders, local stakeholders are an important beneficiary and target group of this program. But at the same time, the program aims to engage in key policy discussion at EU and international level. So even if biodiversity priorities, challenges, and conservation priorities are at project level focusing a specific regional area, there is a direct and straightforward connection with the European biodiversity strategies and commitments. And the last but not least important objective is to quantify the tangible contribution of EU overseas towards these national, European and global goals for biodiversity and climate action. So again, with this regional focus, the idea is that we will be able to demonstrate and bring a valuable and tangible contribution from our areas to these European and international goals. Next slide, please. So you see here the consortium of the project. The coordinator is IUCN. and in particular the European Regional Office. And then we have different type of organization which are working together to achieve the objectives of this project. So we have the Association of Overseas Countries and Territories as board member. We will have as a peer of the OCTA, the CP-RUP organization, which is representing the outermost regions. Then we have also OFB, which is another organization representing French overseas territories. And then we have different organizations which are acting as regional hub. And we have in this case Nordeco, and in the case of Macaronesia, we have Consulta Europa. So our organization, which is actually working as regional hub for the Macaronesia area. So our role in this sense is to really provide support to all of you, both at the application stage, but also at the implementation stage. So we are actually acting as primary point of contact for stakeholders and other institutional partners of our area, which includes, of course, Canary Islands, Azores, and Madeira. And so we will support you during the application phase. You can come to us for any questions or doubts you might have regarding the proposal submission process, and if you need actually also support in how you can prepare best your proposal. And then in the second phase, when the project, if your project is selected and funded, we will closely work in collaboration with you to ensure that you receive all the technical support during the implementation, but also during the reporting activities. And we provide also support. We deliver actually communication dissemination activities to give visibility to the program and to ensure that we can reach all the stakeholders which might be interested in participating as applicants. So you will receive, as Lucia said, a big amount of information during this information session, but I would like again to reinforce the idea that you can always contact directly with us. You can write us by email, and we are here available to support you with any type of doubts. So please make sure that you refer to us for any kind of question you have, because the idea is that we want really to support you in preparing the best application possible.
Yeah,
so thank you very much. Yes.
If I have to add something, yeah, we work as an intermediate between us and IUCN, because sometimes there's a small confusion and you write directly to IUCN, but the idea is actually to light the work of the program officers from IUCN, and we work as intermediate. So any question, even if it's very specific on finance or very specific on technical on technical matters, please refer to us. And if we do not have the final answer, we will ask these questions to IUCN, but try to avoid to directly contact them and take this email into account to contact us directly. Okay, just that, Michelle.
Thanks, Lucia.
Thank you very much. Now we will go to a small presentation on the. This is going to be quick because it is a general idea, so that you have an idea of what happened during the first call in all the territories. As you see, 130 concept notes were submitted, 76 were pre-selected to the final phase, and then finally 57 final phase proposals were funded. And the geographical distribution at the end, as you can see, Macaronesia had 7 projects funded. We will go deeply on the Macaronesian side for a few minutes on, but as you can see, there was a big geographical distribution of the project proposals approved. Main types of action, of course, ecosystem restoration, 34%, and species conservation, another 34%. 14% IIS management, 9% protected areas, and 9% sustainable management. Then you have here the types of organizations that were funded. This is the general IUCN for the first call, the whole territories. As you can see, NGOs take out 52%, because as you will see during this webinar, we will make a huge emphasis on actions on the ground. Okay, this is very important for the preparation of your concept note and the final phase 2. Evaluators have a very deep criteria stating that you cannot present fundamental research projects. And I think that this graphic says it all, that 52% are NGOs that work on the ground. Then this is the specific case of Macaronesia. 21 concept notes were presented, 10 final phase projects were presented, and finally 7 funded projects. 4 the project regions, 4 projects in Madeira, 1 in Azores, 2 in Canary Islands. Of course, things to bear in mind, and as you can see, aspects to be improved regarding the first call. And I know I'm going to be very repetitive on this case, but please bear in mind these things. You really need to have a great stakeholder engagement. Identification of stakeholders is very important in this program. Also, bear in mind that not many, but a few project proposals were not above the threshold because the budget justifications needed better alignment with the project of activities. And some proposals lacked clear methodologies or monitoring frameworks. So I put this in red here because I think that maybe these mistakes can be again put in place, but since you are lucky on the second call and we can learn from our mistakes, please bear in mind these things. I'm going to be a bit fast on this part because there is a lot of information regarding the rest of the webinar. So, okay, awarded grants duration. Your projects can be from 18 to 36 months, including extensions, so no more than 36 months, and beginning on January 26. Of course, you can begin your project on February 26 and so on, and this will be established at the end of your project approval and the grant agreement signature. And the maximum project budget is 105,263.16, which means that 100,000 is the maximum granted amount, which is paid by the program. And as you have seen in the program guidelines, there is a 5% co-financing, which is mandatory. So at the end, your maximum project budget can be up to 105,000 euros, more or less. Now, let's take a closer look at who can apply. Of who can apply under this second call. To be eligible, your organization must fall into one of the following categories, which are local non-profit organizations or NGOs, civil society organizations or community-based organizations, SMEs as defined by the European Commission, local research institutes, but only if they are implementing eligible activities directly, and finally, local sub-governmental bodies like municipalities or their groupings. This means that entities must be registered locally, have the legal capacity to manage EU funding, and take a leading role in the project implementation. Of course, if your organization doesn't match any of these categories or isn't legally registered, unfortunately, you won't be eligible to apply as a lead applicant. That said, if you're unsure about your status or role, of course, feel free to reach out. Some of you have already done so. I'm thinking about Plocan. I don't know if Tanya is here, but I'm thinking about a few entities that already reached out because they were not sure if they were eligible or not, but feel free to contact us, of course. Okay, this is a very important slide because this is a reviewed eligibility criteria from the first call of proposals. This is an important eligibility conditions for public authorities and territorial governments, particularly relevant for Macaronesia. So in our region, Canary Islands, Azores, and Madeira, regional governments are eligible, but only if they apply together with at least one local partner, meaning an SME, a local civil society organization, an NGO. So, for example, the government of the Azores or the Canary Islands cannot apply alone, but they can join a proposal as co-applicant as long as there's a local entity leading or is actively involved in the project. Actually, the idea behind this requirement is to strengthen local partnerships, ensuring that the projects are rooted in the territory and reflect local needs and capacity. And of course, if you're a government department or agency in Macaronesia and you're interested in applying, make sure you're working in close collaboration with a local actor. And again, if you doubt on the eligibility of your application, please contact us. In this kind of slides, I've put the page of the guideline for applicants. So we will be sharing this presentation at the end of the meeting, and you will see the references here so that you can go to the detailed information on the guideline for applicants. Also very important, an organization can submit and be awarded a maximum of 2 proposals per call, either one proposal as lead applicant and one as co-applicant, or 2 as co-applicant, but maximum amount for each recipient per project per call is 100,000 euros. Again, page 8 and 9 of the guidelines for applicants show a very illustrative table for the special conditions for future applicants. You will see there a very illustrative table where you have the special conditions for each of the type of applicant. Then, eligible activities. Again, you have a list of eligible activities, very detailed, in page 9 and 10 of the guidelines for applicants, but a few words that are very important. The activities must be located in one or more outermost regions or cities, in our case, Azores, Madeira, or Canary Islands. You must implement activities on the ground and contribute to tangible and measurable biodiversity conservation impacts. I put this in red because, again, this is very important. They cannot be fundamentally research projects, and they should encourage partnership-based approaches with local stakeholders. So again, 2 words, stakeholder engagement and non-fundamental research projects. Then here you have the ineligible activities. So of course, the purchase of land and voluntary resettlement of people, or activities that negatively affect physical cultural resources, activities affecting individuals and local communities, the removal or altering of any physical cultural property, activities that duplicate work previously or currently funded by BEST or other EU funds. This doesn't mean the continuation of previous work. This means that ineligible activities are the duplication, but we are trying to foster from UCN and the European Commission that if you have presented LIFE or BEST projects in the past, we encourage you to make a continuation of your project. That doesn't mean duplication, okay? But continuation is very encouraged. Duplication is ineligible. And financial support to third parties through subgrants, microcredits, or loans. Okay, now how to apply. As you have seen in the guidelines for applicants, you have this is a two-step approach call for proposals. So stage one, which is the one we are now, it is an open call concept note where you will be elaborating a summary of your project and your budget. Then we will go through an evaluation of these concept notes. We have two external evaluators who will be evaluating the technical aspects of your proposals, and we as regional hub will be checking on the eligibility of your application with the administrative checks. And then once the concept notes are evaluated, if your project goes above the threshold, which is 30, you will be invited to present your full proposal. Where do you apply? So in the BESTLIFE dedicated portal, you have the link there. It is also in the guidelines for applicants. Very simple. You or your project officer registers, and you can fill in the information directly on the portal. You have to create an account, and then you have English and French as main languages to elaborate your concept notes. I have taken on some screenshots so that you can see what does it look like. As you see, this basic information on the lead partner details. You also have other partner information, which is the co-applicant information. And then you have the project overview, project description, safeguards, budget, due diligence, and final checklist. In the checklist and submissions, you will be able to annex other documents on PDF format and so on, so that you can support your application. As you can see, it's very, very simple, like if it was in a Word format. Of course, take into account the character limitation. I know that there is not a lot of space for the concept note phase, but that's the idea, actually, to be able to summarize your project proposal in a way that on a first view, we can see your project objectives, activities, etc., etc. Okay, so again, it is a 5-step online process where you begin with the project narrative, with the project description, objectives, etc. Then you have the safeguards, which are a few questions regarding, I don't know, equality, if your project affects any area, etc., etc. Then you have the budget section, then the due diligence, and the checklist and submission. As said before, how does the evaluation of concept notes go? The relevant regional advisory committee evaluates the whole proposal. The regional advisory committee is integrated by the regional hub, so in this case, Consulta Europa, the two external evaluations, and IUCN. And we will go through step 1, an administrative check made by us. Then step 2, technical and financial evaluation, both by the external experts and IUCN. And then we decide the final score of your concept note. Please, at the end of the guidelines for applicants, you have the information on the evaluation criteria and the corresponding scoring. Okay, so it is very recommended that you take a look to that table and the criteria, and you create your project proposal based on that criteria, so that you can go through all the lines and make your checks. Okay, have I integrated my project of objective with BESTLIFE objectives? Have I justified correctly my budget, etc., etc.? But we really invite you to go through to that criteria, which is at the end of the guidelines for applicants. Then we will go through the regional priorities of Macaronesia. They haven't changed very much, but we want, since the first call, but we wanted to point out the additional aspects for the second call, which are that in your project, you clearly demonstrate in your proposal the alignment with regional and national priorities and the Life for Best gap analysis. I've collected all the documents in one slide so that you have direct connection with the documents that I'm mentioning here, okay? In case you don't know them or so on. So very important to align your project with regional national priorities and the Life for Best gap analysis on Macaronesia. Alignment with EU policies, specifically the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030. Projects should also align with and contribute to the objectives set by the EU Habitats and Bird Directives, ensuring the conservation of biodiversity and protected ecosystems, and of course, prioritize most threatened species and habitats as per the IUCN Red List. These are new priorities set after the evaluation of the first call. Okay, so the priorities were agreed with Macaronesian governments at the start of the BESTLIFE 2030 program, and they are still relevant, confirming alignment with current strategies and to ensure continuity and coherence with respect to local governments and knowledge. Again, the Life for Best gap analysis, you have the link here, but we have another slide that collects all the documents. And of course, we have a broad scope of priorities maintained because there is a flexibility for diverse conservation efforts, and there is a huge alignment with diverse regional conservation needs, not preventing submission of relevant and well comprehensive applications. Okay, now we go for the timeline. So, as you know, the call launch was in March. We are now in April 2025 with the concept no capacity building period with this webinar. Then at the end of May, 30th May, you have the concept note submission. During the month of June, we will have the concept note RAC meeting, which means administrative checks and evaluation of proposals. And you will be invited, the ones that passed the concept note phase, you will be invited to the final phase that will be launched between week 14 and 18 of July 25. Then we will go through, I know that this is a bit of a difficulty for us in our area in Portugal and Spain, but we will try to have our capacity building in September because I know in Spain and Portugal, August is a holiday month. So we will try to have our final phase capacity building sessions in September so that you're prepared for the final phase submission in October 2025. Then in November again, we will go through the evaluation of the final phase proposals. And if everything goes well, by November, December, we will have the grant agreement preparation, and in December 25, the grants announcements, and begin with the implementation of your project in January 2026. Again, I prepared here a slide with the useful documents for Macaronesian applicants. You have the frequently asked questions that we also invite you to read on the IUCN portal and on the BESTLIFE portal, the guidelines for applicants, the gap analysis for Macaronesia, the EU Biodiversity Strategy 2030, EU Birds Directive, and EU Habitats Directive. I thought it would be helpful to have all these documents gathered. Okay, now we will prepare ourselves for the financial information, the funny part of this webinar. Again, project duration is 18 to 36 months, and start date as January 2026. And we will go again through, we will go now with the eligibility of the costs. So first, cost must be actually incurred during the project period, meaning after the official start date stated in the grant contract. So if your project in the grant agreement states that you begin on the 5th January 2026, an expenditure on the 1st January 2026 will not be eligible. Okay? Anything outside the project period cannot be claimed. Then second, the cost must be necessarily and directly related to the implementation of the project. So no extras or nice to have, everything must contribute to achieving your objectives. Third, they need to be reasonable, well justified, and in line with a good financial management practices. And also, all expenses must be clearly identifiable and verifiable. That means recorded in your accounting system and ideally under a specific project code to make sure that the tracking is easy. And finally, costs must be compliant with local legislation, whether that's tax law, labor law, procurement rules, or social security requirements. In eligible costs and contributions, you have the big list on the guidelines for applicants, but I've underlined two main and ineligible costs, which are bank costs charged by the beneficiary's bank for transfers from the granting authority. That's ineligible. And of course, currency exchange losses. So any charge for bank transfers, etc., this will not be eligible to report in this program. Then we have co-funding. So a minimum of 5% of co-funding of the total eligible cost is required. It can take the following forms. So own resources that are not linked specifically to the action submitted for funding. For funding, that's the idea that we recommend. Since this is a very appealing program, there is no many programs where the co-financing is so low. 5% in the majority of the cases is at least 15, 25%. So in this case, we really recommend the own resources idea, or of course, financial contributions, funding given by third parties to a beneficiary for being used specifically for the same action of the project. But please notice that no cost for the same activity can be funded twice from EU budget. So you cannot take budget from another EU project for the same activity and take it as co-funding for this one. And volunteering can be considered as own resources to define EU contribution. Okay, here you have the example of budget for step 1. As you see, it's the table on the left. It is a very simple budget with the 5 main categories that we will be detailing just after this line. As you can see, human resources, travel, equipment and supplies, other costs and services, and indirect costs. You put the amount, and please be very specific in the justification. As you saw in the things to be improved from the first call, we saw a few project proposals that didn't go above the threshold due to the lack of justification or detailed justification in their budget. So be as specific as possible. And this is very important. The BESTLIFE 2030 contribution may not vary from the initial estimate by more than 25%. So you have on the left side the budget that you will be presenting in the concept note phase, but when you will be presenting the final budget during the final phase, which is the structure of the other table. This one, as you can see, is more detailed with lines within the categories, etc. This cannot vary by more than 25%. So if you have human resources for I don't know, in the concept note, 10,000 euros, you cannot put more than 2,500 euros in human resources for the final phase budget. Of course, this detailed table on the right has only to be completed if you go through the full application final phase. Okay, now we have type of costs. So as we saw in the budget illustration, we have human resources or staff costs, travel and subsistence, equipment and supplies for the projects, other costs and services including consultancy, indirect cost, which is maximum 7%, and then of course your co-financing that has to be minimum 5% of your total budget. Okay, cost category number 1, we have staff cost, including employees, SME owners, and natural person beneficiaries, or volunteers, work not paid. But we will go through each of them a little bit in detail. So budget line 1A, employees. This refers to the cost of personnel who work on the project and are formally employed by your organization. That means they need to have an employment contract or an equivalent appointment act, but that there is a very important condition here. Only the costs for staff specifically assigned to the project are eligible. So if someone is listed in an internal decision or organizational chart as working on the project, that's fine, but they must be clearly assigned to the action. To justify this, you'll need a signed monthly declaration of days worked or another form of reliable time record. This is essential for transparency and accountability. And also, in this case, the staff cost 1A employees are actual cost, not simplified or flat rates. So you'll be reporting real salaries paid. Finally, these salaries must be paid according to national labor law and aligned with your organization usual employment practices. Here you have the eligible components, so the fixed salary, fixed components, social security contribution, taxes linked to the remuneration, etc., etc. And ineligible components, you have part of remuneration not as actual cost for the beneficiary, bonuses, dividends paid to employees, etc. Second option for staff costs. We have natural persons and SMEs owners. So we have here the self-employed natural person, for example, in-house consultants. But these have some requirements. So a contract signed between the subgrantee and the natural person, not through another legal entity or temporary work agency, or a contract signed between the subgrantee and legal entity fully owned by the natural person. The person must work under conditions similar to those of an employee. The result of the work carried out must, in principle, belong to the beneficiary, and the costs of the person must not be significantly different from the costs for employees of the applicant performing similar tasks. Okay, so if you are reporting staff costs under line 1A, the reporting of cost for natural person and SME owners cannot be a huge difference on the daily rate of the natural person. This is something very general because you will not be using this, of course, for the concept note phase because the budget is very summarized, but we will be giving you a formula to calculate the daily rate of the natural person or in-house consultant if you want to hire one, and as per the decision made by the Commission on October 2020. the following formula goes as 5,080 euros divided by 18 days. That would be the average daily rate for an in-house consultant. But of course, we will be going deeply into this during the final submission. Sorry. Then you have for staff costs, you can also report volunteer costs. So the work of volunteers, of course, volunteers are people who work on the project on a non-compulsory basis and without receiving any kind of salary. Even though they're not paid, their time can still be counted as contribution to the project and declared as a cost, but only if they meet the eligibility criteria. So this category uses unit cost. So you don't need to report actual payments, but rather the number of days they worked, rounded up or down to the nearest half day. Each day is valued differently depending on the country. And in our case, in Spain and Portugal, which includes, in our case, Canary Islands, Madeira, and the Azores, the daily rate is established in 78 euros. So if you plan to include volunteers in your proposal, just make sure their work is clearly documented and that they are working under the same transparency principles as the rest of the team members. Then we have cost category number 2, travel and subsistence. This category covers your project's expenses for transport, accommodation, and daily allowances during travel. So breaking it down, we have travel costs must be based on what you actually spend, and they must follow your organization's usual rules. For example, how you book flights or use public transport. You'll need to provide documentation to justify this. Then accommodation should also follow your internal rules, and it must be and must respect the maximum EU rates. I'm sure the majority of you have experience in EU projects. If not, you can write to us and we will try to share the information on the maximum EU rates of your country. So don't book luxury hotels, keep it reasonable and justified. And subsistence, which means your meals and daily expenses, is actually calculated using per diems, again following your internal policy and staying within European Union ceilings. If your organization doesn't have a per diem policy yet, we recommend creating one just to stay on the safe side of the reporting of expenses. Then we have cost category number 3, which is equipment and supplies for the project. It includes things like vehicles, food, furniture, computers, tools, clothes, or spare parts, but only if they are used exclusively for project activities. Here are some examples. Renting a vehicle for field work, you'll need to specify for how many days and what purpose. Buying a laptop and a graphics card for someone who works on the project. Protective gear for staff like gloves, boots, and trousers. But there's an important condition, which is this type of costs are expected to be incurred in the first year of the project. Why? Because they are usually related to the setup phase or core tools needed for implementation. So if you buy a laptop 5 months before the end of the project, for example, you might only be able to declare a pro rata of the cost, which means, for example, if you buy a computer for 1,200 euros, but you only use it for the last 3 months of a 12-month project, then you will not be able to declare the full amount of that computer. So please bear in mind that if you have some equipment in your budget, you will be it will be compulsory to purchase it at the initial part of your project implementation. Then cost category number 4, other costs and services, including consultancy. So these are goods and services that don't fall under the personnel, travel, or equipment, of course, but are still essential for implementing your project. These are real costs, which means they must be documented and linked to specific project activities or deliverables. What kind of expenses are we talking about here? So translation or interpretation services, communication and visibility actions, for example, designing poster, producing videos, managing social media campaigns, communication and dissemination strategies. We also have here the organization of conferences and seminars, including the venue rental, the speaker fees, logistics, etc. Of course, publications like reports, brochures, or scientific articles. And as stated in the title, also consultancy on, I don't know, financial management or whatever. You'll notice that most of these items are usually connected to project outputs or deliverables. So make sure that when you include these costs in your budget, they are clearly tied to your project activities and expected results. And if you're hiring a consultant for any of these, like someone helping you with an event coordination or a communication action, their contract should also be clearly linked to those specific outputs. Then we have cost category number 5, indirect costs. Usually these costs are necessary for the implementation of the action, but are not easy to divide between the organization management. So this will not this will not need a justification and must not exceed 7% of the estimated total eligible direct costs. The lead applicant may be asked to justify the percentage requested before the grant contract is signed. So, okay, you go through the final phase and you put your 7%, then maybe you will be asked for a justification before the grant agreement signing. But once the grant agreement is signed, you will not be needing to justify these costs during the reporting periods of the project, okay? And of course, it includes office rentals, supplies, internet costs, printing, and all of these kind of needed materials and services. This is a bit of spam, but of course, your budget needs to be realistic. Then applicants of the concept node will be ready to provide the following documents if applicable in order to assess your financial capacity. So funding documents as articles of incorporation, constitution, statutes, government decree, etc. Certification of tax and social security compliance, audit report and annual financial statement of 2 years if you have it. Of course, again, if applicable, written policies on accounting, procurement, and code of conduct. And of course, the failure to provide documents allowing for a thorough financial capacity assessments could lead to the applicant being deemed ineligible. We have prepared here a slide on recommendations for you as applicants. So foresee a project coordinator in your proposal with a budget line. Be generous when calculating staff costs because the reporting phase, financial and technical, usually requires more time than expected. Foresee some costs for communication and visibility actions because the elaboration of a communication strategy is something quite important in this program. Design your project taking into account the time you need to purchase and receive the equipment in case you will be buying equipment. Be aware that during the lifetime of the project, the total of advance payments can't exceed 90% of the total budget. The last 10% will be paid at the end of the project once all costs are validated. So normally you will be receiving at the end of the grant agreement signature, you will be receiving 90% of your total budget, and you will not receive the final 10% until the end of the final reporting. Of course, foresee to have a bank account in the name of the organization and negotiate with the bank the charges for receiving international transfers if they have fees. Bank charges are not eligible costs. And notice that if your concept note is selected, the final budget presented at the full proposal stage can vary not up to 25%. Okay, now we will go through a small summary of how to design your concept note. So here you have the 4 main steps to, I don't know, to carry on while preparing your project, which is number 1, relevance. All these 4 points are aligned to the criteria at the end of your guidelines for applicants. So the criteria that will be used by the external experts to evaluate your proposals. So number 1, relevance, including the alignment with the BESTLIFE objectives, tangible positive impacts, and support of relevant strategies. Then number 2, effectiveness, the feasibility of your project with a realistic budget, realistic project timeline, and of course, how you will be addressing the risks of your project implementation. Then identify relevant stakeholders. Very important, okay? I am not the one who evaluates the proposals, but I saw and I read the evaluations made by our colleagues, the external evaluators, for the first call, and I assure you, many of the concept notes or final proposals that were submitted, in many cases they were below the threshold because the stakeholders were not well identified, because they were too much focused on fundamental research projects, and because, and the third one was, there were not clear tangible results on the ground and tangible action on the ground. So please bear in mind the identification of relevant stakeholders, their involvement in project design, and their involvement during the execution of the project. And finally, number 4, sustainability. Demonstrate the long-term sustainability and potential for replication. Again, I am also I also want to state this at this point of the webinar. That is, I also said it at the beginning of the presentation, and the European Commission, IUCN, and us as regional hubs are really fostering the continuation of past projects or the continuation in future calls. So for sure, if you present a project during this call, you will be able to present the continuation of your project during other calls of this same program. Actually, we have projects that were approved during the first call, that will be presenting a second part of their project in the third call. Okay, so bear in mind the continuity, the sustainability of your project, the continuation. Sorry. So, what specific conservation challenges does the proposed project aim to address? So, a strong proposal clearly outlines the conservation issue and presents a well-defined approach to address it. First of all, identify the conservation issue. Begin by clearly defining the specific conservation problem your project aims to solve, such as habitat loss, overexploitation, invasive species, or climate change impacts. This provides the context for your project and explains why the action is necessary. Then analyze the key drivers of decline. So identify the primary drivers contributing to the decline of the target species or ecosystem. These might include human activities like deforestation, agricultural expansion, pollution, or climate change. Understanding these drivers is critical for developing an effective strategy to tackle the root causes. Then highlight target species and ecosystem, highlight the species or ecosystem most impacted by the conservation issue that you have identified, explain their importance, maintain biodiversity and ecosystem services, and why they are priority for conservation efforts. Then, after identifying the problem, the drivers, the target species, then you propose the solutions and the actions to solve the problem presented. So outline the specific actions your project will undertake to address the conservation challenges. These might include habitat restoration, species protection, community engagement, or policy reforms. Ensure that these actions directly address the identified drivers and are designed to create sustainable and long-term solutions. So a comprehensive understanding of the conservation challenge is achieved through collaboration, again, with local stakeholders, including local communities, NGOs, associations, government officials, academics, etc., to ensure the issues are accurately defined and effectively addressed with all the members of the quadruple helix. So quick reminder, our conservation challenges consist of two key parts. So threats, these are the immediate pressures that directly impact species, ecosystems, and their services. Example, habitat destruction due to deforestation or urban expansion, which results in the fragmentation of ecosystems and loss of biodiversity. And the drivers are the underlying socioeconomic and political causes that create or exacerbate the problem. For example, weak governments or policy enforcement, where there is an inadequate environmental regulation, or corruption, or illegal activities like logging, mining, poaching, etc. So by identifying both the threats and the drivers, you as project proponents can address the root causes of conservation challenges, ensuring that the solutions are not only effective, but also sustainable in the long term. So here, this is a recommendation. So you can look in this website, which is Panorama, Solutions for a Healthy Planet. Panorama offers proven adaptable solutions aligned with global frameworks like the Coming Montreal GBF and SDGs. By exploring the platform, you can draw inspiration from successful case study, best practices, gain cross-sectorial insights, and access scalable strategies to enhance your project. So we really could recommend you to at least take a look at it and get inspired for your project preparation. Of course, ensure alignment with regional biodiversity and conservation priorities. We have gone through this, and you have the slide with the EU documents that apply for our region. And this will be useful for your final phase preparation, which is taking into account the logical framework for the project structure. So start with the overall objective. Your overall objective defines the impact you want to achieve. It sets the direction and purpose of your project. Then identify tangible results. Break down your objective into specific and measurable results. Again, I know I'm very repetitive with the stakeholder engagement, tangible results, and non-fundamental research projects, but I've seen some of very good ideas for proposals that went below the threshold due to these kind of things. I knew that they have tangible results, but they were not described or specific. And of course, the external evaluator has to check with the criteria. Okay, so of course, be specific and put in measurable results. These are the key outcomes that will demonstrate your progress toward achieving the overall goal. Then define the necessary activities to achieve your goals. So identify them that will directly lead to achieving these tangible results. Each activity should contribute to moving you closer to your objective. And of course, link activities to the budget. So ensure that your budget is aligned with the activities. The cost of each activity should reflect its importance and the resources needed to accomplish it. Finally, you will have here, and you will see on the platform that there is one of the sections which is safeguards, and which include environmental and social risk screening. You will be assessed on potential environmental and social risks of your project based on the ESME's standards and principles. So you will have cultural and natural feature. Does the project involve areas with significant cultural and natural resources, like sacred sites or indigenous territories? If yes, describe the impacts and mitigation measures, including consultations and consent. Gender equality, very important. Will the project impact gender-related inequalities or gender-based violence? If yes, explain measures to avoid exacerbation. Then law enforcement and resource access. Will the project involve law enforcement or access restriction? Of course, if yes, explain the potential impacts of that. Indigenous people rights. Will the project affect indigenous peoples, lands, or territories? If yes, describe consultations. Then construction and infrastructure. Does the project involve construction or infrastructure development? If yes, explain the potential risk of that. And non-native species and environmental risk. Will the project involve non-native species or activities like pesticide use or forest restoration? If yes, justify the activities and explain how risk will be managed. Of course, eligibility reminder. Ineligible actions include land acquisition and voluntary resettlement, activities on contested indigenous lands, etc., etc., etc. Finally, I have prepared, because as you know, stakeholder engagement is fostered during this call, and we also want to avoid the duplication of project topics, because at the end, the budget for the calls has a limit, and we cannot fund 10 different projects on the same topic. So what I have done here is actually, when you filled in your the formula, the online attendee information, you put the topic of your project. And I've gathered, I don't know if you are all here or not, the one that subscribe to the webinar. But I have gathered the entities from our Macaronesian region that have similar topics, and I've put on the right side the organization name. Of course, I cannot put the emails here in a slide, but if you're interested on talking to one of the other entities that are presenting projects on similar topics, so that you complement your project proposals and you don't duplicate information, I think it's a very useful information, because also, again, based on our experience last year, for example, there were 2 projects that went through the final phase regarding sharks and conservation. They were very, very, very similar, and only one got above the threshold because the topic was the same, and at the end, the other criteria was taken into account, and one went above the threshold and one went below the threshold. So I've done this work so that you're aware of what is being, what will be going on the different proposals for the different entities. As you can see, we have 5 proposals that will be dedicated to sharks and rays. So shark biodiversity by ULPGC, Angel Sharks by Angel Shark Project, Shark Research and Conservation Country Tenerife. Again, we have also different on butterflies and pollinators. So once I share this this presentation, I really invite you to or ask us for the contact, or we will be happy to do that for you, so that you can complement the actions and avoid any duplication of project activities. And again, this is a small summary of the deadline for submission of your consent note, which will be 30th May 2025 at 2 p.m. Brussels time. We also invite you to sign up for the newsletter, and I thank you very much for your patience, because I know that it was a lot of information. And since I'm Spanish, sometimes I speak a bit quick, so sorry for that. So does someone have any questions?
Lucia, Ivana here. Just a comment from my side.
Okay, Ivana is actually our program officer from IUCN, and she's the one I contact when you ask me questions that I cannot answer. She's the one answering the questions. So take the floor, Ivana.
Yes. Hi everybody. It's nice to meet you. Like Lucia said, I am one of the technical officers under the Best Life. And I just wanted to provide a bit more clarity with regards to the if you've already benefited from a previous Best Life grant. So I know that might be a question that you might have in terms of, if you've already benefited, can you apply again? The answer to that is yes. Once you still meet the eligibility criteria that is set in the guidelines to applicants, you can apply as a farmer Best Life or Best Beneficiary. And then you can also have a new project that continues activities from a previously financed Best or Best Life project, but it cannot duplicate it, meaning it cannot implement the same activities in the same place at the same time. It can't duplicate the project, but it can be a continuation of a previous project. So just to provide a bit more clarity on that.
Thank you, Ivana. Martin.
Yes, my question is regarding stakeholders from abroad, from other EU countries, outside the region. I understand you don't really want to have applicants from those regions like it was possible in the first call, but can these organizations be involved in other ways, for example, as beneficiaries within a proposal? Because I see that some of the things which are needed there is also cooperation on the European level, and I think some of the stakeholders might even help in providing this and certain expertise. But I understand the work on the ground, of course, which should mainly be done by stakeholders in the islands.
For sure, you are invited to include stakeholders from other EU territories if you think their expertise will contribute to your project implementation. For sure, 100% yes, Martin. So the idea is to have, of course, we want to have tangible results, very locally situated, but if their expertise is going to do something better for the land, for biodiversity, for the species conservation, 100% yes, they can be included. Even they can have some budget, like external expertise or whatsoever. That's not ineligible at all. Your mic is off, Martin. I cannot hear.
Applicants one of the
Sorry, the sound is not very clear.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why. Maybe I take it out. Maybe now better?
A bit, yeah.
I don't know what. But not really but as one of the stakeholders. Is it correct?
I didn't. Can you write the question on the chat, because I think your sound is.
Okay.
Now it's better. Now it's better.
No, that's the question. Not really as co-applicant, but only as like as a stakeholder also. Correct?
And co-applicant is not, Ivana, correct me, but last year we also had as co-applicants entities that were not part of the Macaronesian regions. I remember that we had one co-applicant from Barcelona, which is Spain, but not Canary Islands. Ivana, can you help me with this and confirm that as co-applicant we can have entities outside the Macaronesian territory in our case?
Okay, can I get back to you on that? As you know, I'm still new to the program, so I would have to follow up with Christina.
For me, yes, because last year it was possible. But Martin, if you have an idea also, what we can do is that send me an email with the idea that you have of kind of organization, and we can check it all together with Ivana, Christina, and I, and we can assess the feasibility of that, and we can answer you before, of course, the submission. If you write us an email with a specific case, we can confirm you, but I am not saying that you cannot include them as a co-applicant. We will confirm you by writing email, but send us an email before with a specific case, and we will confirm you in the same day or the day after if they can take part of the project as co-applicant. And of course, if they cannot take part as co-applicant, they will be able to do it as stakeholder for sure. That's 100% yes. But let's see with a specific case so that we don't give you an incorrect answer. Write us an email and we will evaluate that together with Ivana, Christina, and the IUCN team. Okay? Isabel?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I have very specific questions, so let me know if they're not appropriate for here, and then I can send you an email, but I think maybe other people will have the same questions. So one of the questions is there a limit to the co-applicants we can have per proposal? And the other question is, can the co-applicants have their own budget?
There's no limit for co-applicants, but of course the budget is very limited for the implementation. You can put as many as you can, but in my experience and what we have seen, they have been a maximum 2 co-applicants, okay, because the budget is limited. And second question was if they have their own budget. Okay, that is something that we have been talking with IUCN, but because in the portal, actually, during the first call, the budget was elaborated by the lead applicant, and they didn't have a specific budget for them. But on the justification side, you could write that these categories were going to be paid to the co-applicant, because the money will go directly to the lead applicant. Okay, so in the grant agreement signature, there will be no distribution by applicants. Okay, the money will go to the lead applicant, and it's the lead applicant who, through a collaboration contract or whatever, distributes the money with the co-applicants. But we have actually recommended that there is a specific budget for the co-applicants in the platform, so that things are clear and we avoid more bureaucracy while writing a collaboration agreement where you state that 30,000 euros will be going to the entity whatsoever as co-applicant. So the answer, for the moment, no specific budget for the co-applicant, but of course, in the justification and on that column, you must say that this is a part of the budget that will go to your co-applicant, even if they don't have their own table, and then you will be the one distributing the money to the different co-applicants. I think did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. And I have 2 more questions. May I? I don't know if other people. Okay.
Don't worry.
So the other is, can the lead applicant be the one who provides the co-funding of the 5%?
For sure.
Okay. Either
that's own resources. Yeah.
Own resources or okay, yes. Own resources. And when it comes to indirect costs, so you have a maximum of 7%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know that my question makes almost no sense when we're dealing with people that are trying to fight for money, but
Don't worry.
what if the lead applicant don't want to charge this money? That's fine too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a list of questions. To me, it makes almost no sense, but I was asked to ask these questions. So
yeah. If you don't want a 7% for free, you don't have it.
Okay.
But of course, it's the only percentage that you don't have to justify. Okay. So 7% of your project do not have to go through any reporting, or it's 7% of your project budget goes for you for free.
For free. Okay. Thank you.
Is that okay, Isabel? Okay. Next, I'm going, Maria Teresa. I'm going to answer just one question on the chat because I think it was before your hand up. So I'm reading it out loud from Angel Shark Project regarding the funds. Is it necessary that the funds are received by the main applicant, or can the funding be managed by another co-applicant? No, the answer is the funds must be received by the main applicant. So in your project, maybe you can change the order and put as lead applicant the co-applicant, because the signature of the grant agreement will be made by the lead applicant of your project, and the one who signs the grant agreement is the one receiving the funds. Angel Sharks, I don't know where you are, but I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Maria Teresa, go on.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Just two questions. I come from a LIFE project, so it's similar funding, but a little bit different. So I have two questions. When we say own resources for the 5%, can it be like allocation of personnel to the project? Okay, good. And the second question, also regarding personnel, is that, for instance, for the traditional LIFE projects, we have a 2% rule that for in-house contracts, like for additional people, it cannot be, for non-additional staff, it cannot be over 2%. Is there any rule like this? No. Okay.
No.
Okay, good.
No, in-house consultants go in staff costs with no limit as the rest of the employees or staff costs.
Okay, good.
Yeah, this is Maria Teresa, as you have experience in Life for Best, this is a very chill program compared to other European programs, okay? If you have experience in Life or Interreg or whatever, since the objective is to help local organizations with, some of them do not have any experience in European projects. Two of our projects funded for the last call are entities that maybe have had in their account 10,000 euros when they presented but the idea is exactly that, is to help local institutions to actually work on the ground and help them to have some budget margin and do real work on the ground. So that's why there are less limitations than in other EU programs.
Okay, thank you.
I know this wasn't a question, but I think it helps to understand the idea behind the program. Ayose from ULGPC, indirect costs are 7% of the total eligible cost, excluding subcontracting, correct, or subcontracting including. It's 7% of your total budget, including all the lines. So if your project goes up to 100,000 euros, your maximum indirect cost is 7,000 euros. Ayose, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. Usually the subcontractor are not included in European project, but in this case, it seems yes. So great news. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much from the contract team for the info and dedicated time. We'll be in touch. I have to leave now to Ken Riggers. Okay, Antonio. Anyone else? No? Of course, I am completely available. Some of you have already written to me, and we have a very high response. So normally I won't take more than 20. If I'm not on holidays, I won't take more than 24 hours to answer your emails. So please, any question you have, we are here for that. Okay, and if we have like a doubt with, for example, the one with Martin. We reach with IUCN with we have a really close relation, and we will answer you as soon as possible. Of course, again, I will be sharing the presentation. The meeting, sorry, I forgot to say that, but the meeting has been recorded, and if you agree, I think you did in the formulario. It will be published in the YouTube channel. So if you have any doubt or you don't remember anything, we will be sharing with you both the presentation and the recording of the webinar. Okay. Okay. So I think that's it for today. Good luck. I don't know. How can we get the contact? Oh, sorry. There is another question. Isabel, how can we get the contact of the people that have projects that are similar to one we want to submit? Through me, okay? Write me an email because I didn't want to share the emails due to GDPR. So as soon as the meeting ends, I will share with you the presentation where you have the 2 slides with the projects that are similar. You send me an email. Okay, I'm presenting a project on sharks and I want to get in contact with Condrick, and I will give you the contact of Condrick or whatsoever. Okay. Did I answer your question, Isabel? De nada. Oh, great. Thank you, Ayoce. And have a very nice week after the Easter holidays. I think it was a bit difficult for everyone to come back. But good luck for everyone. And again, we are here for anything, okay?